Republicans in the Senate are introducing and filing this afternoon a piece of legislation that we're calling the Cut, Cap, and Balance Act. This is a proposal that would raise the debt limit by $2.4 trillion. It would make the increase in the debt limit conditioned upon the occurrence of three events. First, some significant immediate spending cuts that would take us back to a 302A top-line number, the same number that was found in Senator Toomey's legislation recently, that would contain statutory caps, the same statutory caps found in Senator Toomey's legislation, and that would also make it conditioned upon the passage by Congress and submission to the states for ratification of a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, one that is either based on or that closely resembles Senate Joint Resolution 10, which is the balanced budget amendment proposal that has been co-sponsored by all 47 Republicans in the United States Senate. This is a big step forward. It's a move that we believe is absolutely necessary because many of us believe that we can't bind a future Congress. And because we can't bind a future Congress through a simple legislative act, through a simple statute, a promise to cut $3 or $4 billion right now in order to make sort of a down payment on the debt limit increase is a promise that could become illusory if it's not accompanied by something else. The one way that we can bind a future Congress, one that's not in power now, is through a constitutional amendment. We're identifying here today that this is one way that we could raise the debt limit. Some of us have signed a pledge saying that we would not raise the debt limit unless these conditions precedent have been satisfied. I'm one of those people. Others among us have not signed that pledge, but have indicated that they would be willing to raise the debt limit in this circumstance. And I thank Senator Roy Blunt from Missouri for making the suggestion a few weeks ago that we consider doing something like this, and it was in response to that that I and others decided to move this forward. Again, we've got 21 co-sponsors here in the Senate. We look forward to picking up more in the next few days, and we are confident, we're very optimistic that this is a solution to this awful crisis that we find ourselves in that could find support in both houses of Congress and in both political parties. I will now turn some time over to my friend and colleague, Senator Pat Toomey, who is one of our lead co-sponsors.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Senator Lee, and thanks for your leadership on this. I appreciate it very much. As I think everybody has figured out, voting to raise the debt limit is not a fun vote, and it's not a popular vote. But many of us acknowledge that the failure to do so would be quite disruptive, and I use that word intentionally. Failure to raise the debt limit by August 2nd would not result in a default on our debt. There are no circumstances in which that need occur because ongoing revenue to the Treasury is more than enough by a very large factor to ensure that we not default on our debt. Having said that, it would amount to a partial government shutdown, and that's something that I, for one, would like to avoid. That's why I am willing to vote to raise the debt limit. However, my own view is that the most irresponsible thing we could do would be to raise the debt limit and continue with this egregiously excessive spending and enormous deficits that we have been running. What this bill does is it makes a substantial increase in the debt limit possible, but contingent on the kind of discipline that I think we badly need. And by the way, the elements of the bill, the spending cap levels and the balanced budget amendment, have separately enjoyed very, very broad support among Republicans in the Senate. We had all but 3 Republicans in the Senate voted for my budget on the Senate floor, and the cap levels are taken directly from that budget. We've had every single Republican senator sign on to a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. And we know that the public is very, very supportive of reaching a balanced budget and reining in spending to do so. So I think that this is the right approach. It's a very sensible approach. It has, as I say, the elements have had very broad support within the conference. This particular bill has very quickly garnered a great deal of support within the conference, and it is, for some of us, and myself in particular, it's a way to convey to the President that we're willing to raise the debt limit, but we've got to fix the fiscal disaster that's unfolding so that we can have the strong economic growth and job creation that requires a sustainable fiscal profile. Thank you. And Senator Paul.
Last week, the president chastised Congress. I'm assuming that was chastising Republicans and Democrats alike to cancel some things, come and do some work. So we did. We insisted that they cancel the recess. We came back expecting to work and do something about the debt ceiling and about the debt crisis. Unfortunately, the other side immediately moved to another issue, which wasn't the debt crisis, and we defeated that vote. The vote was actually canceled because we were going to win the vote on Monday or on Tuesday. None of us wants to raise the debt ceiling. None of us thinks it's a good idea to spend money we don't have. We think it's a problem that we've been doing it for so long. But we also think that there would be some circumstance under which we would borrow more money. And to me, that circumstance is you have to have a real plan, a binding plan that says we will do things differently, that we can be trusted with the taxpayers' money, that we can be trusted to balance the budget. And for me, that means we have to have an amendment to the Constitution. I see no objective evidence that Congress is otherwise proving themselves to be trustworthy. We have evaded pay-as-you-go. We evaded Graham-Rudman-Hollings. We just haven't done a good job here, and the problem is getting precipitously worse. I think this is the path to go. I think it's the only path to go, and I wanted to show today that Republicans can be for something, for some reforms, and for raising the debt ceiling as long as we get a balanced budget amendment. And I'd like to introduce Senator Blunt.
Thank you, Rand. As Senator Lee said, I was one of the people that didn't want to sign and don't intend to sign a pledge that says what I won't do, but this is a bill that says what I would do. And so this bill does the things that begin to create the structural changes that we have to have if we're not going to pursue business as usual. My view, much like Senator Toomey's, is that my practical view is that the debt limit needs to be increased and will be increased. But I've said repeatedly that the thing worse than not lifting the debt limit would be lifting the debt limit and not changing behavior. We have to change behavior. We have to have structural change. This approach would do that. It cuts discretionary spending roughly back to the 2006, FY 2006 level. It caps spending in other areas that I think generally increase in almost every area specified with a cap by law, and perhaps most importantly, pushes forward the necessity of a balanced budget amendment. I'm for all of those things. I think those are the kinds of structural changes that we need to have. I might be able to be for other things as well, depending on what happens over the next few days. But this is a plan that I'd like to see as the plan. It creates the structural change that I'd like to see. And I don't intend to vote for a debt limit that doesn't have some significant structural change. This bill would be one of the ideas that's brought forward that I think would give us the change we need to move forward responsibly. And there's no question that the government in the last 2.5 years has acted irresponsibly. We've added 35% to the national debt in 30 months. We talk about things like corporate jet depreciation. But I think if you accepted the president's proposal, it might save $3 billion. We're borrowing $4 billion today. You're not going to solve this problem by making your big discussion points roughly 16 or 18 hours of borrowing, and that's what you say is the real problem. That's clearly not the real problem. So hopefully we'll see structural changes. We will not continue with business as usual, and hopefully this debt ceiling moment creates the opportunity for the government to do its job and to do the right thing. And one of the guys who came here to do the right thing is Senator Johnson from Wisconsin.
Well, thank you, Senator Blunt. The only reason I ran for the United States Senate was because I think we're bankrupting this nation. And I've always thought the only way we prevent that, it's a two-step process. I mean, first we have got to enact the hard fiscal discipline, the spending caps. And I think in the end, we need a constitutional amendment to limit spending to balance the budget. So that's exactly what this bill does. It cuts spending the first couple of years to lower the baseline. It caps spending over 10 years to put us on the glide path toward a balanced budget. And then it does something very simple. It says, yeah, we're responsible. We'll increase that debt ceiling as long as we fix the problem. And as long as we get certification that Congress has passed a constitutional amendment to limit spending and balance the budget, we will increase the debt ceiling. That's pretty reasonable. I'm one American that is happy to let other Americans, the states, decide if they are willing to put that fiscal discipline on all of us, on Washington, on all Americans. I'm willing to let the American people decide whether or not we're going to continue down this business as usual in Washington here, whether we really want to bankrupt this nation, or whether we want to pull ourselves back from that tipping point, from the brink. And again, this is really about letting the American people decide. So thank you. I think next, Senator Vitter.
To me, this is akin to having a cousin who has a huge credit card problem, and he says, don't worry, I have a solution. I need you to come down to the bank with me to get a higher limit or to get an 8th credit card. Well, that's not the solution. The solution is doing something meaningful about the underlying spending and borrowing problem. That's what this approach does. Cut, cap, balance, making that a requirement in terms of any increase in the debt ceiling is a responsible way to attack the true problem as well as deal with the immediate situation. I strongly support it.
Thank you. I really congratulate my colleagues for the work they've done on this. We have to change the way we do business. We don't have the money to continue spending as we're spending. We simply do not have the money, and it's not going to be projected to come in anytime soon. So we have to do the things that families and businesses and states and cities are doing all over America, and that's rein that in. And I agree with Senator Johnson that we need not only to reduce spending, but create a structure that helps us stay within those limits. I think this is a good way to do it, and I'm pleased to be supportive.
Mike, why don't you lead questions?